In this week's Brit and Poland, I take you to Kórnik, I think I pronounced that right, which is just south of Poznań, and it is maybe not the biggest place in Poland, but it is certainly one which is popular with tourists. So you have an incredible castle, a wonderful lake, and some interesting historical buildings here, as well as one of the largest arboretums in Europe. So there's actually quite a lot to see. Actually, there are 2 villages. So I hope to give you a nice view on what you can see in Kórnik and to teach you a little bit about the history. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. This channel is going to bring you everything you need to know about Poland. I am exploring the country, bringing you the history, trying to tell you about the culture and show you what it is really like to live here. So feel free to check out my other media, Instagram, Facebook, and I will share links to those in the comments. I also have a website, www.britlivinginpoland.com, where I collate my videos for easy to view manner. Also, you are welcome to contribute to my efforts through Patronite or Patreon, and all descriptions are available below the video. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and please come back for more by subscribing, liking, or commenting. Thank you very much. Do zobaczenia. So, Kórnik is in the Greater Poland Voivodeship, about 20 kilometers south of Poznań. I'm hoping you've at least been to Poznań so far. It's accessible by bus, and it's maybe not the biggest place. I was able to see more or less everything in about 4 hours, I think. So we start where the bus dropped me off on the, let's say, the high street, but I quickly diverted to the promenade on the lake, which is actually about 3 kilometers long and named after Wisława Szymborska, who was a Nobel Prize winning poet from Kórnik. And as you can instantly see, there is definitely a connection with nature. And I think it's one of the things that makes this town rather special. As I say, it's not the largest place. The population is round about 7,500. Of course, it always fluctuates. And it was originally 2 villages, Kórnik and Brnik. And the history goes back quite a way. It's actually originally like a Bronze Age, Iron Age kind of settlement, which is in the Brnik part. And the first mentions of Kórnik are actually in the 12th century. We're going to talk about some of the sites before we go deeper into the history. So you have a small observation tower and this rather cool fountain, which I guess is more cool. I was there very early in the morning, so maybe before it was properly switched on. And the streets seemed very sleepy and quiet, but then it was something like 9 a.m., 8, 9 a.m., so I guess not too surprising. This looks very much like a Scouts monument, but well. So this is the Eye of the Needle, and it formerly led to the Jewish synagogue, now basically a lapidarium, and it's only opened on November the 1st. The market square, as you can see, is rather beautiful. You have some trees, you have these cool, like, sculptures of what the main layout looks like. So you have the market town square area, and of course the castle that we will get to relatively quickly. The castle in Kórnik is a wonder, and one of the best in Poland, you can say. So the tenement houses surrounding the market square date back to the 18th and 19th centuries, while the street actually has a 15th century layout. The town hall, which was originally built in the 19th century, was actually burned down in around 1909. And so what you see now was built in 1910 in a neo-Baroque style. It's made of brick, 2 stories with a mansard roof and a turret topped with cupola with a spire. Every day at noon you can hear the crowing of a rooster and the Kórnik bugle which comes from the little tower at the top. And apparently the presence of the chicken is connected with the concepts that illustrate the history of the name Kórnik. One of them says that in these areas there used to be a large number of forest chickens. So we now get to All Saints Church, which is another marvel. Originally built in 1437, but rebuilt in 1837 after a great fire. It's built in a neo-Gothic style, and the stained glass windows you can see were actually built in the workshop of St. Wojciech in Poznań. So the history of the temple includes the families of Górka, Czarnkowski, and the owners of Kórnik from Działyński and Zamoysk. It has a couple of chapels in there and mausoleums to the Zamoyski and Działyński family. These were some random interesting doors. So we're gradually heading out of the city, and we're going to get to what you could say is the main attraction. And on the way, you see some really interesting architecture. I wish I knew a bit more about this gate because it looks pretty impressive and pretty old. We'll forget about what's behind it. And there were some, you could say some rather cute, interesting buildings along the way as well. And we're getting close to the castle at the moment. This is like a big courtyard, which is more or less outside. And I think this might be a memorial to the uprising. But the castle itself, so the origins date back to the Middle Ages, and it's always been a defensive structure surrounded by a moat. And access to it was possible through a drawbridge and a lowered iron gate. The old walls and cellars of the building from that period have survived to this day. In the mid-16th century, the castle was expanded and its defensive functions were increased. In the 18th century, Teofila Działyńska transformed the medieval castle into a Baroque palace. And the castle owes its current shape, neo-Gothic, with an appearance and character referring to defensive structures, to Titus Działyński. The castle houses a museum with many unique exhibits, including furniture of various styles and eras, paintings by Polish and European masters, sculptures, numismatic collections, Polish and Eastern militia, artistic crafts made of porcelain and silver, ethnographic and natural collections from Australia and Oceania. And there is a legend which at night Teofila Działyńska, also known as the White Lady, walks through the castle, and you can see her in this picture there, walks through the castle and the park. The Kórnik Castle and Park complex, together with the parish church, have been declared a historical monument. There's also quite a strong Arab collection, which you get to a bit later on. And there's a pretty decent audio tour, which I was following along the way. I love that they have hussar armor. I'm always trying to collect more videos of this incredible armor. And I think it is in this room, if I am not mistaken, that you begin to see some of the kind of Arabian influence. You can sort of see it a bit in the architecture there. And there are a few exhibits which are more of a kind of Persian Arab style. So the castle is most definitely worth a visit. I think it's the primary thing that you can go to see here. It probably takes about an hour, maybe even 2 hours to walk around. Oh, the White Lady got us again. And it is a truly beautiful place, and you can say one of the most beautiful castles in Poland. And plus, I'm trying to collect haunted castles as I go, and this one certainly works for that. Right next to the castle, you have the Arboretum, which I didn't expect when I got there. And this actually has about 3,000 species and varieties of trees and shrubs, and is one of the largest dendrological parks in Central Europe. Many of the specimens, often of impressive size, are today 130 to 180 years old, and the oldest growing trees are about 300 years old. Initially, the 18th century Italian garden was transformed by Teofila Giowinska into a French-style park. So you can see this Teofila Giowinska, who was part of the Giowinska family who owned Kórnik, had quite a large influence. And actually she was responsible for drastically improving the town after 1676. And she helped to bring in new residents, merchants and craftsmen. And it kind of transformed Kórnik into a much more popular place. So going back to the history a little bit, but while we go through this beautiful park. So in 1450, it was granted city rights. It was passed to the Charnowski and Grudzinski families in 1592 from the Gorka family. It finally fell to the Giowinski family in 17th century. It would fall to Prussia in the second partition of Poland. Residents from here were involved in the Greater Poland uprisings in 1794 and 1906. And in 1939, 15 residents were shot in front of the town hall as part of Operation Tannenberg. And of course, at this time, Jews were deported and murdered by the Nazis. So we're going to follow the promenade again. And this time, we're going to go over to the village of Benin. And on the way, we are going to see some rather interesting and sometimes scary looking art. For example, those creepy figures and these red bicycles. And these headless busts. I think all of this is relatively modern, but I have to say, pretty cool. And cat lovers will, I'm sure, love this bench. Yeah, there was actually quite a bit to explore. A lot of kind of natural areas and parks kind of along the lakefront to walk around. Here are some classic, rather nice structures. I couldn't quite say the age, but they look nice. Here's a fence with some more information about Kórnik, of course, in Polish. So I haven't quite translated all of that. You do have a ferry which crosses the lake. Didn't really see it in operation, but I'm sure it's quite a busy thing. Or you could always steal a boat. Maybe don't steal a boat. But it was very relaxing, considering that I was rushing around like a headless chicken to see everything I could. It was still very relaxing to be here. And it made a really nice day out for me, actually. The weather looks a bit worse than it was. It was actually pretty warm that day, just a bit overcast. And in Benin, we get to the Church of St. Wojciech. And this dates back to 1826. Okay, so we're going to go through the streets. So Benin was founded in 1395. Here's the town hall from one angle. We're going to get back to it a little bit later. Actually, Benin was stripped of city rights in 1934 and merged with Kórnik in 1961. I'd say the most notable area to go to is the area you're coming up to now, which is known as the Neck Peninsula, which is kind of hidden behind the cemetery. And this is, let's say the most archaeological area of the city, because traces of civilization actually go back to at least the 5th millennia BC. And on this kind of peninsula, there was a defensive stronghold, and there are some traces of that we can still see today. And this dates back to Mieszko I's father, Shiomoshyl, and the works were completed around 1940. So I hope you're enjoying this. The only thing I'd warn you about this particular area is there was quite a lot of animal excrement on the ground, I think mainly by cats. So do watch your step if you're out walking. And there were these, some crypts and some rather interesting historical buildings in the area as well. And it was kind of like an added bonus, you could say, to the experience, because I wasn't really expecting like a whole other village that was in walking distance. And there's only maybe a kilometre or so between the two places, though they do seem quite separate. And they even have their own town halls. But it's definitely worth a day out, especially if you're in Poznań. It's just a bus away. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of Kórnik and Benin. And see you very soon. Do zobaczenia.